Welcome back to the show. Today I'm talking with Elishia Dvorak, and we're going to talk about the API Manager that came out in ColdFusion 2016 and is being updated for ColdFusion 2018. And if you haven't come across that, we'll look at what it is and why you'd want to use it, what the business case for it is. And very excitingly, it's actually attracting new people who aren't even ColdFusion developers currently to use ColdFusion because of it. So welcome, Elishia.
Thank you, and hello, everyone.
And if you don't know, she is the technical marketing manager for Adobe ColdFusion and also their e-learning products. And she actually started out as a ColdFusion developer quite a few years ago.
That's right. And thanks for the introduction. I did start out years and years ago as a ColdFusion developer for a short stint, but I did spend quite a lot of time, most of my years in my career, doing support and account management for the larger architectures. So that's where most of my experience is in really architecting solutions and troubleshooting the problem.
Fabulous. So the API Manager came out a few years ago with ColdFusion 2016. What exactly is the API Manager? Because not everyone may have used it.
Right, and that's a great question. So basically, API management encompasses everything that you need to do to basically manage APIs in your organization. And it's different from some of the other buzzwords out there, like API gateways, for example, which some of the cloud providers do offer. It's the gateway is more of a transactional-based system that actually handles requests back and forth from your client to your APIs. However, what about all of the other things that encompass API management? Things like throttling, for example, and SLAs, authorization and security, analytics, identifying the metrics as a result of those APIs and reporting on that. So this API Manager actually encompasses and manages all of the aspects that I just talked about, along with things like versioning. All of you that have deployed APIs before know that it's very difficult to put an API in play. And once it's in play and it's production ready, you have subscribers that are using that API. How do you manage the next version that you update that API with? So things like that are taken care of through automatic versioning, lifecycle management, and notifications that are built into this system. So all of that encompasses API management. It's a big space, but we have built this API Manager from the ground up. So it's become quite a great tool to be able to globally manage your API initiatives internally.
So this is if you have an API that you're publishing either internally within your organization or publicly, and you need to have that extra level of control and understanding of how it's working.
That's correct. So that's not the only scenario that we're seeing, though. So many of our users are actually deploying internal APIs or externally exposed APIs of their own. However, the other side of that is actually pulling in and exposing external APIs that your organization is consuming too, and making those available to different departments within your organization that require access to that. So you're really taking advantage of the fact that even though it's not your API, you can manage all of the aspects around that API and its use internally within your organization within this tool as well. So there's a couple different scenarios that we're seeing out there.
That sounds great. So why would someone want to use this instead of just releasing their API into the wild?
Sure. That's a great question, and I think that that's something that I've been talking about quite a lot as far as recently when I was traveling and going to all these different locations, talking about the API Manager. And I think I can say it as this. When you, let's say most of your organizations have multiple development teams, right? And this is what we're finding at, I would say, a large number of our accounts. where there might be one or more ColdFusion teams, which are, teams of 5 or 6 or maybe more. But, they're smaller groups within the organization. They also might have a .NET team within that organization that's working on a whole nother set of projects internally, or maybe the .com site or something else within the organization. So imagine the sheer magnitude of managing from a global sense all of the security, the authentication that you're going to be building in, all of the analytics that need to be built in as far as and as well as the versioning that I just talked about. Imagine how much disparity that you'll have within each of those groups that has their own proprietary solution for management of all of these different aspects of their own APIs. So doing that at the global level and standardizing on that with an API management solution is really where you want to be at in order to be able to remove a lot of that work and effort involved in management of the different teams and their own way of doing things, let's say. So it abstracts all of that, all of the problems of implementation of all of the aspects that I just talked about, like building in your own SLAs, building in your own throttling mechanisms, building in your own OAuth or API key mechanisms for your APIs. All of those are abstracted as a part of this API solution now. And so you can manage that at a global level within the organization instead of having a bunch of different proprietary solutions that everybody's working on independently.
Now, I think I understood what an SLA is. That's a service level agreement saying how much the API is up. But you mentioned an OLOF. What is that for people who haven't come across it?
So we do support OAuth 2 as an authorization mechanism, as well as basic authentication and API key. All of those are all built into the API management solution as resources for you to use for authorization of your APIs. Who can access them? Got
it. So what's the business value of using the API manager? If you're trying to convince your boss that, yeah, they should, use this, what would you say?
So there's a few different ones. Number one, I would say is just pointing back to what I just discussed, is if you talk about the effort involved, and we all know that developers don't come cheap, right? And they're going to build their own solutions for this, or you're going to buy a solution. That's just how it is. You either build it or you buy it. And if you buy it, like I said, you're getting the value of being able to globally manage this across different teams, rather than having those teams work on their own or try to come up with a solution together. So there's one business value that gives you back your dollars as far as the hours involved in the development. Number two that I would say is definitely going to be security. And as everybody knows, what's happening right now, and this is what we're seeing and why we're focused and emphasized in the API space, is that the development trend moving forward right now is that APIs, especially Rust-based APIs, are being used as a mechanism for transferring data between all applications. Whether it's, proliferation of Internet of Things, or it's internal application to internal application, you need some kind of standard for which they're going to be able to talk to each other, right? REST-based APIs are that mechanism. And as those REST-based APIs grow internally in an organization, you have to start thinking about security. In terms of security, is your team going to be making the effort to become security industry experts? Are you going to take that on yourself and all of that effort involved in that? Or are you going to offload that into an API management platform, such as Adobe's, where we have an entire team that's dedicated to making sure that we are building the security into our products? So basically what you are doing is basically offloading that task of being those security experts into Adobe. Adobe provides the functionality to make sure that we're securing your APIs from the management level, from the gateway that we provide as part of this solution. And we're giving you hot fixes and security fixes along the way. So we have entire resources dedicated to this, entire teams at Adobe that provide us this value, and we're giving that back to you through this product.
That
and
makes
the last thing that I would mention, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. There's a third reason.
The third reason, which I think I brought up and then I just thought of that I had already said that, is the fact that for the price point of this solution, a license is going to be a lot less expensive for you at the $8,400 price to implement this as a solution in your organization than it would be to not only build it, but also buy any other solution that's out there. So the price point is very good.
That is good to know. I mean, I was going to ask you what this costs, but basically it comes with ColdFusion Enterprise, as I understand it. Is that right?
Yes, it does come with Enterprise Edition. So if you have Enterprise Edition licenses for ColdFusion 2016, you will have API Manager keys provided to you as a result of that.
Fabulous. So you've decided you need this API Manager, and how I'd explain it to someone listening is, you know, building an API is sort of like building a car, but if you just had the API and you didn't have an API Manager, it'd be sort of like you didn't have locks on the doors and you didn't install a steering wheel or any of the speedometer and other dials in there. Yes, you could drive somewhere in that car, but it might be a bit dangerous and you really wouldn't be in control of what was happening.
That's a great analogy, I think, too, and it kind of does give somebody a scenario that they can compare to. Sure.
So is API Manager really a separate product from ColdFusion? Does it have a separate install, or how does it work?
Yes, and I'm glad you asked that, because I think this is a misconception of being that we are shipping it with ColdFusion. You can think of API Manager as a separate product altogether. It is a separate product. It has its own installer. It was built from the ground up. This is an entirely new application that we developed internally here. It has nothing to do with ColdFusion, other than the fact that we built an integration capability to allow you to deploy APIs very quickly that are built in ColdFusion already. So when you first install the product, like I said, it installed separately. It's out of the process of ColdFusion. You would install this on its own VM, and it does not have any integration upon the end of the install with ColdFusion at all. You have to set that up yourself.
Okay, so if someone wanted to have APIs in Java or .NET or any other language, they could use this to manage them.
Absolutely. So basically, the API Manager that we have supports both SOAP and REST-based services. So any SOAP-based or REST-based web service which is created using any language, such as Java, like you said, or .NET, PHP, any language at all, including ColdFusion, can be imported into this API Manager.
Well, that's really powerful. So I know there's a ColdFusion 2018 release coming up. Will there be a 2018 release of API Manager as well?
Yes, absolutely. So the difference here, though, is that we're getting off of the standardized GA schedule, which means that we are going to release with Ether, and Ether will include a number of features and functionalities with that. However, the update for API Manager, because it is a separate product, will actually take place post-GA release for Ether. So you can expect a major update to API Manager, which will actually focus on things like security. I believe we're going to be adding some more mechanisms to remove the portal out for developers, and a couple of extra things as well. So that will be a major update to API Manager that you can expect, I believe, at the end of this year.
Fabulous. That sounds like it's going to become even more powerful. Is Adobe marketing API Manager to non-ColdFusion shops, or how are people adopting it?
Yes, absolutely. So right out of the gate in 2016, the marketing strategy had been about making their existing customers aware of the fact that it was available. Now, as you know, many of our ColdFusion customers are just basically getting, over the first year, they're just getting into that new version. So a lot of the discussions that I was having last year happened to be around the fact that they were interested in APIs and they had an API initiative within their organization, but they weren't yet fully into ColdFusion 2016, or they had just done the process of the upgrade. So once they do that, now at this point, I would say we're getting a lot more queries from ColdFusion customers that are very interested in trying to utilize this within their organizations. And we have a number of customers that are already deployed in production with a really heavy load actually in this API management space. However, after the initial marketing strategy around raising awareness within our existing customer base, now we're actually branching out. We're beginning to branch out into the other development spaces to try to make them aware. And I would say our strategy now is just making sure that, of course, we keep focusing on our existing customers to bring awareness there, because there's a lot of customers that, you know, they do tend to skip versions and things like that. And so they might just be getting into 2016 now, but also create a new branch of that strategy that includes raising awareness, not only in developer communities outside of ColdFusion, but even just within our ColdFusion customers, but out into the other development groups. So we're trying to reach out to these other development teams within our own accounts and actually just make them aware that this is a product that's available to them too.
Well, and for anyone listening who hasn't upgraded to 2016, you know, I was talking with Charlie Earhart yesterday on the podcast, and he just wrote a forum post saying, you know, 2016 works great, and any rumors that, you know, you shouldn't upgrade to it are false from all the hundreds of people he's worked with on 2016. So, you know, if you've been holding back from, you know, I know some people hold back from upgrading, you know, until like the first hot fixes come out. Those have all come out now. It's good to upgrade to it. So.
Yeah, we've had a number of very heavy updates to ColdFusion 2016 already, but also too, it's not, the upgrade process is actually really seamless, but the bigger reason why people should be getting into 2016 right away is the performance increases. So a lot of people are already saying that they have noticeable performance gains from just going into 2016 and taking advantage of the performance enhancements that we made.
That is good to hear. People always love to have their code run faster.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else on the API Manager you want to share with folks before we go to some other questions about CF Summit and ColdFusion?
I think I just want to say that if you do have some interest and your team wants to get to know the API Manager better, we'll have my contact information listed after this. Feel free to reach out to me and we will definitely set up a demonstration for your team. In addition to that, we are having additional road shows coming up too. So if you're in one of those areas that will have a road show, just keep an eye on our blog and you can meet us in person and we'll do a demonstration in person for you. Well,
that's great. And I'll link to Charlie's post that he wrote about why 2016 is good to upgrade. I'm also going to link into, I did an episode a few months ago with Brian Zappi where he really went deep into the, you know, what's the technical side of the API Manager. I think he spoke at the CF Summit West last year on this topic.
Right,
so,
and they're one of the accounts that actually has quite a heavy load on that API Manager that they have in play in production.
Yeah. So let's turn to CF Summit East. That's happening in Washington, D.C. in April, just in a month and a half now. Tell us what you're excited. You've been to that event set for many years now. What are you excited about for this year?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me how close it is, actually. you know, I have this envision in my mind that it's at least 2 to 3 months out, and it's not. So the Summit East is actually morphed into something much bigger than we initially expected. And it feels kind of like when we first did Summit, the original Summit, the CF Summit in Vegas, because we didn't think it was going to be as big as what it's becoming. Now, we started this 3 years ago, and I think we had about 60 people. That doubled as of last year, and we're expecting even a lot more this year. So it's grown to be kind of the place to be on the East Coast, if you will, in the springtime for ColdFusion developers. And I'm super excited about it, not only because we have the Ether release, because a lot of the content will be around familiarizing everyone with what our go-forward strategy is for the product, but you'll begin to see that ColdFusion is becoming such an exciting, I would say, tool set to work with now. And this is because our strategy has been built around what are the development trends that we're seeing. And I think now it's panning out for us in the sense that we're going to have a tool set for our developers and other developers that are not, you know, developing in ColdFusion to utilize and take advantage of and realize business value. So I think I'm really excited because I think that all of our users at that event are definitely going to get to see real live in person some of these demonstrations that we have about the new features and functionalities that are coming out, but they'll also get a wealth of knowledge around some of the existing technologies in the 2016 space that they might have missed already, and also the latest in, of course, security and things that are really important to them.
Well, that's great. And I actually interviewed Kishore Balakrishnan, if I'm saying his name right, all about CF Summit East, all the speakers and the details. But I do want to point out to people listening, it's a free event. And it's happening in Washington, D.C. And I want to say it's April 24th, is it? I may have got the date wrong.
April 25th.
25th, there
yes,
you go.
It's on the 25th. So it'll be a full day event. I believe we have, I want to say 10 sessions plus the general session. So we'll have a general session, and then we'll have 10 breakout sessions with along 2 tracks outside of that. So it's going to be a full day of learning. Like you said, it's a great event because it's free. So you just have to, you know, make it into DC. But we also provide breakfast and lunch, and you know, it's a great networking event too, because there's going to be a lot of people there this year.
Well, that's amazing. A fancy DC hotel and food and lots of amazing ColdFusion information and no cost. So all you have to do is get yourself to Washington, DC, which in April is actually quite a pleasant place to be.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't want to go in February because I think we've got all the snow right now, but April is a great time. The weather's perfect. It was last year. I remember it was perfect. So we really encourage you guys to get down. It's a great, like I said, value, because this is all coming out of Kishore's marketing budget. So.
Well, that's very generous of him. He must have a very big credit limit on his Amex card. So.
We have to keep increasing it.
Yeah. And just to clarify for people, in previous years, it was branded as a ColdFusion Government Summit, but that's not the case this year. It's both for government and non-government attendees. Is that right?
That's right. You know, initially, the reason why we started the event is because there were a lot of government resources that had given us some feedback that they were basically unable to attend events in Vegas because Las Vegas is a blacklisted, you know, event space or conference meeting space for them. So what we wanted to do initially was provide something to our government customers that they could go to for free, because As you know, the procurement process and approval process for Gov is actually quite lengthy. So we wanted to just give this back to them as a way of our appreciation for them to, you know, continue to be our valued customers. But what's happened is that there are so many developers outside of the government space and in the commercial space in that area too, that we didn't want to disclude anybody from being able to attend. So we did open that up for everybody to attend. And it's just, it's a smaller conference right now. But we wanted to provide it as an alternative option to those of the resources that can't get into Las Vegas for a conference.
Well, that's great that you're doing that, and it's great that you're spending all that marketing budget, because I know hotels in Washington, D.C. are not cheap to hold events in. So I think that's really shows how much commitment Adobe has to marketing ColdFusion and expanding the learning in it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so too. I think the marketing team has done a great job. Kishore, he definitely listens to the feedback that is provided, and we've, you know, tackled a lot of things along the way. We've come up empty on a few, obviously, but the DC Summit, or the East Summit that it's turned out to be, has been one of the most successful things that we've done.
Fabulous. And then I heard a rumor that the CF Summit West in Las Vegas registration has already opened. Can you tell us more about that?
That's right. Actually, we just opened it a few days back. And so registration is now open for the ColdFusion Summit 2018 in Las Vegas. It will be held October 1st through 3rd, and it is going to be at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. So you can go ahead and register there for, it's at cfsummit.adobeevents.com, and hopefully you can put that link on the end of this podcast. But the registration actually right now is open for, I think, 3 more weeks at $99. So even if you don't have approvals yet, it might be a great time for you to go ahead and register at that ridiculous rate and get yourself in there so that you can come to the conference and meet us.
That is an amazing price for, and how many days is CF Summit West? It's
going to be 3 days, with the first day being a pre-conference. The pre-conference is held on October 1st, and it'll be a full day of pre-conference labs is what we usually do, which are the walkthroughs and the making sure that you get some hands-on with the technologies that the topics are on. And then day 1 and 2, which are October 2nd and 3rd, will be the ColdFusion Summit, where we'll have the general session and keynotes, as well as the full conference and the evening event as well.
Great. Well, you couldn't buy lunch and dinner for 3 days for $99, so I
that's right.
suggest...
So once again, we've increased the credit card budget so that we can provide our developers an opportunity to come in, sit with us in Vegas, get their networking and their learning in. And we don't want cost to be a major factor of this. So if you look around, this is probably the least expensive conference that you'll go to, right? And the reason why is because this is the marketing team's gift back to our community. And you know, we really just want to encourage everybody to come and spend some time with our team. Our engineers are going to be there again, and just talk with us, give us feedback, and do some learning while you're there. And the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, I do want to point out that this isn't a place that was actually on our list a couple of years ago. I was on the original committee where we did the site visits, and Hard Rock wasn't an option for us, but they've actually since then revamped the entire casino floor. They've also revamped all of the guest rooms. So this is a different environment than I saw even 3 years ago. And the pool scenario, especially on October 1st through 3rd, is, I think, going to be great weather, So I'm actually looking to probably contract with one of the pools to have a pool party too for the evening event, because they have some really great outdoor space there as well. So I think this is going to be a great event. It's going to be one of the best events we've ever done.
That sounds really exciting. So 2 great events, East Coast, West Coast. Do you know if you're speaking at the West Coast one as well as the East Coast one, or is that still a mystery at this point?
You think Kishore would let me get away with not speaking?
Probably not. No.
No, I will be speaking. The content has not been determined yet, but that's a great point to make, actually. I do want to point out that we have call for speakers open right now on that website. So we are looking for new speakers. We're looking for new technologies and technologies really that I think would be, if you think about what topics you want to submit, think about what the general audience at CF Summit would be wanting to hear about. So if there's a certain problem that you have a solution for, if there's a certain case study that you want to present and walk everybody through how to do it, I think those are great topics, as well as any new technologies in the development space that are really gaining in popularity among the ColdFusion development community.
Fabulous. So yeah, I encourage people who are listening, you don't have to be like one of those veteran ColdFusion speakers. Sometimes it's really nice to hear from people who have real experience at their organization and can share it. So, and you know, I also just encourage all women CFers listening, you know, we need more women speakers too, in my opinion.
Absolutely, in my opinion as well. And we are looking for women to come and submit topics. You'll notice that we did have a couple of new people that spoke last year that were women. We would love for your input. We want to make this a diverse set of speakers. And you're right, we're not looking for just veteran speakers here, although, you know, those topics do really well, and we know that there are some very strong speakers in our community. We love to hear new topics, new speakers, and especially a diverse set of speakers too.
And is it just regular sessions you have, or there are workshops or chalkboard sessions, or what? Help us understand the format of the CF Summit West.
So the labs will be on day 1, and that will be the hands-on workshops. However, at times we do, depending on the topic, we do put in a 1 or 2 hour hands-on workshop within the ColdFusion Summit schedule as well. So if you do have an interest in seeing specific topics during CF Summit that are 1 or 2 hour hands-on lab type of scenarios, please feel free to contact me and let me know what topics those might be. Getting into the lab space during a 1 or 2 hour session is a bit more difficult, simply because depending on the requirements for the installation and setup, we could end up spending a lot of time you know, on that portion and less time on learning. So it's a bit difficult for us, but if there's some topic that everybody wants to see on a lab, just to kind of do a walkthrough or a show me this, or let me do a hands-on for, then just let me know about that topic that you want to see, and I'll do my best to try to fit something like that in the CF Summit regular schedule.
Fabulous. So let's just switch topics slightly and talk about ColdFusion itself for a few moments. Why are you so proud to be involved with ColdFusion? Because you've been involved with it for a long time now.
I know. I think that, to me, as much as I think the perception is, the product itself has morphed into so many different things. And I was kind of talking about this with one of the community members recently, where I was kind of trying to describe, especially in the last couple of years, what our product team has done with this is basically create a suite of development tools. So if you think about ColdFusion, you're really missing the point when you're thinking about it as a development language only. It's a platform of development tools at this point, I would say. And, you know, who knows what it will end up becoming as far as, you know, marketing and naming goes. But, you know, if you look at the products that we've built, basically ColdFusion is there, the server product, application server, the language is there, the development tool set within ColdFusion Builder is there. You also have API Manager that's there, that's a separate product. And now with Ether, we also have an application performance monitoring tool set. So all of those are different, and that's a new product in itself too. That's built from the ground up, separate installation, and scalability and all that built in, just like we did with API Manager. So when you look at that and you just take a step back, you'll see that ColdFusion is a technology tool set, and it now has all of these different, I would say, applications that are part of that tool set to enable developers in the modern day to do their work and do it quickly, fastly, reliably, securely, and really do it and dependably, really. So I think that for me, it's an exciting space to be in because I'm always really behind in trying to catch up with all of the new technologies. I mean, when we come up with a release, it's like drinking from the fire hose with all the different aspects of the technologies that we've input into the product. And then I have to figure out exactly how, you know, how am I going to become this expert at that product? So for me, I like change quite a bit, and I can't deal with something that is just stays the same every year. And so I think that's what's been enticing to me about being part of ColdFusion and part of this platform change.
Well, and I think it's 20 years since the first developer conference for ColdFusion. So it's been going for a really long time in internet years.
Right. And I think that says a lot for the longevity of the product. And I think that's something I speak to quite a bit in private forums when I'm in these meetings that we go to on site, is just the sheer numbers of different types of solutions. And I think that everybody that I speak to is extremely surprised as to the wide use of the platform that they didn't know about. And even I'm surprised on a regular basis about it myself.
Oh, it's amazing. I was just talking to Brad Wood from Autis Solutions, and he was telling me all about Command Box, which lets you use ColdFusion as a scripting language, so you can control your servers or other processes, you know, all in ColdFusion instead of having to write it in Bash or Perl or some other wacky scripting language that's even older than ColdFusion. So it's amazing what you can get up to these days.
Yes.
So I have a final question for you before we get to how people can contact you, which is, what would it take to make ColdFusion even more alive this year?
I'm going to go with community engagement. And I'm speaking to all of our developers out there. You know, we built the community portal. I think that our team is a very accessible team when it comes to engineering resources and just being available. So I would encourage you all to not only take advantage of that fact and get in touch with us and let us know your thoughts, but also be a part of the community through our portal and really elevate yourself in the community as a resource for new developers to come and ask questions. Be kind to each other, obviously, and just help the Adobe team in making sure that we're all engaging with each other. And hold us accountable too, you know, if we're not engaging you in the right way or the way that you need to be engaged with, then let us know and we'll try to fix our processes. And we're all interested in making this a better platform, but we would love to get more help from the community in the way of blogs and tech note articles on the community portal. And it's also a way, like I said, to elevate yourself as an expert in the community, which you guys all are. I think many times our developers are very humble when it comes to the technology and the things that they've built, and they are reluctant to share that information. So I would say, you know, go outside of your comfort zones and share the solutions that you have and we'll all be better for it too. So that's one thing I would say to make the product better this year, at least, more live.
Yeah, I definitely encourage everyone listening to do some small act of engagement, even if it was just getting into that community portal and liking someone else's article. At least that's doing something, and preferably commenting or starting posting stuff yourself. So great
Absolutely.
ideas. So if people want to find you online, what are the best ways to do that?
The best way is to send me an email, I would say, at Elishia, ELISHIA, at adobe.com. The other way is I'm on Twitter. So ELISH Dvorak is my Twitter handle. It's Elishia Dvorak. So you can contact me there. And then I believe you have some of the other contacts as well, which is just the URL for our website, the ColdFusion community site, and the portal. But I think email is the most appropriate way to get in touch with me right now.
Fabulous. Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes on the TerraTech site so people can find you easily. And really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. Hope everybody's excited about the CF Summit and the product in general.